Anything to take up before we bring in the jury?
I was just going to formally move into evidence some of the pictures we talked about yesterday. So formally, we would move into evidence Exhibit 309. We move into evidence 270, 272, 273, 274, 275, 276, 277, 279, 280, 281. We formally move into evidence Exhibit 30, Exhibit 15, 29, 31, 32, 33, 47, 55, 58, 60, 61, 66, 69, 79, and 80. And Exhibit 110. That's the one we have.
No objection. All right, thank you. Let those of you received into evidence.
Your Honor, I'm Leah McClanahan on behalf of the United States Department of Justice. I think now would be as good a time as any to give you the TUI letter before the jury comes in for the government's next witness. The TUI letter from the U.S. Attorney.
All right.
Permission to approach. I don't anticipate any issues with any of these witnesses, but I'll be here on the first row.
All right, thank you. Does this next letter need to be entered on the record?
No, sir.
All right. I've looked at it, I understand what we're talking about. All right. Thank you. Is the state ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Is the defense ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any jury? You can be seated. State ready to call?
Yes, sir.
Defense ready to call?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask you this question. It's the same question I asked you yesterday. Since you left the courtroom yesterday until this very moment, has anyone attempted to engage you in any conversation related to this case? If so, please raise your hand. No one's raising a hand. Has anyone brought to your attention any information about this case other than what's been presented in the courtroom? If so, please raise your hand. No one's raising a hand. All right. Jim, you can proceed.
Ed Kingsbury.
Will you swear to this? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give in the hearing of this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please have a seat.
Give the jury your name, please, sir. Spell your last name.
It's Ed Kingsbury, Kingsbury.
Who do you work for?
United States Attorney's Office. I'm their investigator in the Civil Division.
Okay. Prior to going to work in the U.S. Attorney's Office, were you employed in other law enforcement agencies?
Yes, sir. I was a police officer at KPD, retired.
And how long were you a police officer with KPD?
25 years.
Back in 2007, were you employed by KPD?
Yes, sir.
And what were your duties with KPD back in 2007?
Back in 2007, I was assigned to the Organized Crime Unit, detached to a fugitive task force with the U.S. Marshals.
And what were your responsibilities on a day-to-day basis with that assignment?
With the Marshal Service, we were tasked to go look for fugitives either state or the federal level.
Back on January 11th of 2007, were you given an assignment as it relates to this case?
Yes, sir, I was.
What was that assignment?
To go find Lamarcus Davis.
And how did you go about looking for Mr. Davis?
We pulled public records, citations, reports, trying to find any of the associates.
And were you able to do that?
We did.
And after you got associates, what did you do next?
We narrowed in on one, Eric Boyd.
And tell us how you went about trying to locate Mr. Boyd at that point.
We located his mother's apartment. Everybody's got to go visit their mother every now and then, so we went and just sat on his mother's apartment.
And where was his mother's apartment?
In Ridgebrook Apartments.
And there's a map that's been put on the easel to your right. Are you able to locate approximately that apartment on that map?
The building, I believe, is the second building, which is going to be this one, I believe.
Okay, let me hand a marker, or maybe orange may show up. You don't carry a circle. The building that you remember.
I'll put a X to it.
Okay. And when you say you sat on that apartment, what do you mean by that?
My partner and myself, we sat up here at the MLK building. It's an elevated position, so we could look down at the apartment complex.
Okay. And who was your partner at the time, do you recall?
I was with Jason Tarwater with the U.S. Marshals.
Okay. So was that on the left that you did that?
Correct.
And on the left, you recall about what time all that was happening?
Late morning, early afternoon, between maybe 11 and 1.
Did there come a time you were able to locate Mr. Boyd?
We did.
And where did you locate Mr. Boyd?
We located him coming down the steps right near his mother's apartment. He walked through Ridgebrook. We lost sight of him. At that time, a car was leaving. We weren't sure if he was driving or not. We followed the car, watched him pick up somebody in an alley. Traffic stopped. It wasn't them.
Okay. And what happened there?
We drove back to our same position, and shortly after that, Mr. Boyd and 3 females were walking down from the upstairs apartment from where his mother lived.
Okay. What'd you do then?
Mr. Boyd, we verified a picture from the driver's license, verified that his license was suspended. 2 girls got in the van, Mr. Boyd got in the driver's seat and drove off.
What'd y'all do then?
Called the mark unit to have him stopped.
And did you follow along with that marked unit?
We did.
And there's a traffic stop of some kind?
Yes, sir.
And you know, is that area of the stop, is it shown on this map?
No.
Okay,
We stopped them, I want to say, near the Vol Market or the O'Reilly's, in that area of Western Avenue.
Western Avenue.
Yes.
And what, at that point in time, what was your purpose in contacting Mr. Boyd?
We were hoping he would be able to tell us something on the whereabouts of Mr. Davidson.
And what you do with him once you got him stopped?
I went and talked to the females in the van, and my partner talked to Mr. Boyd.
There at the stop?
Yes, sir.
And did this boy give you information about Mr. Davidson?
He was hesitant at first, but then finally he said that he wasn't going to jail for him, so he decided to tell us where he was at.
And where did he tell you Mr. Davidson was at?
It's shown on the map there, on Reynolds Street, 1800.
And there's actually a call-out box there with that address?
That's correct.
Is that accurate as to where that house
That's correct.
was? And were you familiar with that house at that time?
Well, it used to be my old beat when I was in patrol, so I was familiar with the area.
Okay.
He had told us that they broke into the house the night before, the morning before, around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, I guess.
So the morning before would be the 10th, is your understanding? Would that be correct?
Well, I guess either the late the 10th or early on the 11th.
Okay. And what else did he tell you about this day?
He left him there about 5:30 and told me he was going to come back and bring him some food.
Bring him some food?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else you got from him at that traffic stop?
No, sir. Nothing I can remember.
So after you talked with him, he gave you that information, what did you do as far as Mr. Boyd is concerned?
He stayed with us. He took us to the house, and then we drove around to our old academy. It used to be at 220 Carrick Street. Right across the street's a big church parking lot in the church. So we pulled into that church parking lot and waited for supervisors to show up. SWAT team came, and they wanted to get the layout of the house, obviously. I think I drove a SWAT team member by the house so he could see it. And then we came back and got a game plan.
When you say, let me back up just a minute, when you say Mr. Boyd showed you where the house was, did you actually drive by and you pointed out?
Yes, sir, he sure did.
Okay. Is that on the way back to?
And then we drove around the house, but down Reynolds Street and went towards the academy.
Were there marked units doing that? Or?
No, it was in, Jason Tarwater's got basically a blacked out SUV, and we were in his SUV.
Okay. No marked units following
No.
behind?
No, sir.
And at that point, was Mr. Boyd being arrested for anything?
No, sir.
So you took him on then to the staging area across from the training center?
Yes, sir.
What happened after that?
SWAT team got their plan together. I rode with the SWAT team to show them, make sure they knew exactly where the house was at. And at that point, when we got to the house, SWAT team hit a siren or called him out, and then Mr. Davidson showed himself in the window, and SWAT team pulled him through the window.
How they pulled him through the window?
Oh, they broke and raked the glass out and then pulled him through.
And where was Mr. Boyd and all this was going on?
He was still up at the staging area there across from Carrick Street,
Okay.
and make sure we got him into custody. Once we got him into custody, we released Mr. Boyd.
From that area? From
That's
the
correct.
Parking lot?
That's correct.
Now, when you first encountered Mr. Boyd, did you have to take a picture of him?
We did.
Was that be the first time you encountered Mr. Boyd?
I took a picture of him in the parking lot of the church.
Okay. If I could.
That would be the picture.
And that's at that church parking lot?
That's correct.
I don't know if it shows up good. Can you read what's on the
It
front?
says, watch out for the alphabet boys, and the 4 gentlemen on the front. It says FBI, ATF, CIA, and DEA.
Just for the record, what do those letters stand for?
ATF is Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. FBI is Federal Bureau of Investigation. CIA is Central Intelligence Agency. And DEA is Drug Enforcement Agency.
Now, after you released Mr. Boyd at that point, tell us about your next encounter with him and why you encountered him.
Once we had Mr. Davidson in custody, the investigators were up in Kentucky rounding up the other people. And at that time, they had called down and said, we need to go pick him back up.
Okay. And based on what?
Based on what the intelligence they got up there, we needed to go pick him back up.
So after you got that, well, let me ask you this. You know about how long that was after he was released that you got that information, if you remember?
After Mr. Davidson was in custody, probably 20 minutes maybe.
Okay. So tell us about your reaction to that information.
Well, shocked that we just let him go, and we had to go find him. We were surprised that myself, my partner Jason Tarwater, and in his SUV and 2 mark units went back to Ridgebrook. And as we pulled into Ridgebrook, he's walking down the sidewalk. So we got lucky.
Are you able to mark on this map where you saw him?
I'll try. So as we pulled in from Weston to Ridgebrook, he's walking down this way.
Is that in the same area as his mother's apartment?
Correct. He was someplace probably up in here. I know it was in the straightaway, exactly the spot. I'm not sure where, but it was in the straightaway.
Give you a black mark. It may show up a little bit better actually if you mark with it.
It was somewhere in here.
Okay. You say he was on foot
Yes, sir.
and said there were a couple of marked units in the SUV.
That's correct.
What did you do when you saw Mr. Boyd?
I'm sorry, sir.
What did you do when you saw Mr. Boyd?
We asked him to come back to the police department for a few questions. He said, sure.
And was he transported then
He was by a marked unit.
to the police by marked unit?
Yes, sir.
And is that the last contact you would have had with him?
That's correct.
We would move into the evidence map. I don't think we'll move in exhibit 426 is the next, or as an exhibit. And if I may approach the witness, it's a hard copy of the photograph that's displayed on the wall.
Same copy.
We move exhibit 310 in as an exhibit.
Any objection?
No, you're
Let me receive.
Pass it with.
Dr. Gregory.
Now, the arrest warrant that you had, the federal arrest warrant, that was for LaMarcus Davidson, correct?
correct.
And when you made contact with Mr. Boyd, at first he was reluctant to tell you where Mr. Davidson was, but eventually he did. Is that
Correct.
a good summary of what you testified to?
Yes, sir.
And in point of fact, did he not tell you that Mr. Davidson was armed?
I don't remember, sir.
Let me ask you this. Did you testify at a federal hearing?
I did.
And would it refresh your recollection if I were to show you a
Sure.
copy of your testimony?
Sure.
If I could approach. I know it's been a couple of years. If I'll direct your attention, and just for the record, this is the page 223 of the transcript from the federal trial.
Okay.
And if you'll look at approximately number 6, around in there, if you'll just read it,
number 6. He said, so after he said he was going...
Let me ask you to do this, and that, just so that we're following the rules of procedure. If you'll just read over that, and then I'll ask you the question to see if that refreshed your recollection
Okay.
as to this.
Okay.
Was that able to refresh your
Yes, sir.
recollection? So, again, my question to you was, he in fact told you that Mr. Davidson was armed, correct?
Yes, sir. Said he had a gun.
And provided that information to you,
Correct.
which is very helpful information for what you were doing, trying to apprehend a fugitive.
Yes, sir.
correct? Now, did he also give you information about the house that Mr. Davidson was in so that you could actually create a diagram for the SWAT team that was sent in?
Correct. He gave us the best of his recollection.
Okay. And so again, that was information that you were able then to pass on to the team that actually apprehended Mr. Davidson.
Correct.
And you said that he was with y'all when Mr. Davidson was actually apprehended by the SWAT team. He was sitting with you and the
Well, he wasn't sitting with me. I was with the SWAT team.
You were with the SWAT team.
He was back up at the parking lot to the church.
With another
with-
member of the fugitive task force.
Well, he was with, I believe he was with a marked unit,
With the mark.
uniformed officer. Yes, sir.
Okay. If I can have just a second.
So,
I don't have any further questions.
anything else, Peter?
Oh, no.
You can step down. Thank you.
Lieutenant Hill? Samantha, chain of custody.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give in the hearing of this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Please give us your name.
My name is Lieutenant Samantha Hill,
Where are you employed?
the Knox County Sheriff's Office,
How long have you been employed there?
23 years.
What is your current position?
I'm the Intake Release Director.
And what is an intake release director?
I supervise the intake center, the booking center, where everyone's brought when they're first arrested. I supervise those employees and supervisors that run that department and the release department.
Were you so employed in that position back on January 11th, 2007?
At that time, I was a supervisor in that department, yes.
And so what did your duties include then?
At that time, I was a shift supervisor. It was my job to run the current shift that I was working, to supervise the officers as they intake and release inmates.
And so whenever inmates are booked in, what happens to the property that they have on them and the clothing that they are wearing?
When they're brought in, their property is placed inside a crate. That crate number is assigned to that inmate. Only their property go in that crate. It's handed over to a property officer who inventories all of that into the computer system. It is then placed in the back in a secured storage room.
And prior to today, have you had occasion to review the property receipt report to determine whether or not you handed over the possession of Mr. Boyd's clothing to another forensic tech with the Knox County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
And did you, in fact, do that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Pass witness.
Cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
You can step down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Trina Ash. Please stand up there.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give in the hearing of this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please have a seat.
Give us your name.
Trina Gregory.
And Ms. Gregory, if I can direct your attention back to January 11th, 2007, where were you employed?
Knox County Sheriff's Office.
And what did you do for the Knox County Sheriff's Office?
I was a forensic services technician.
Back in 2007, how long had you been an employee with the Knox County Sheriff's Office?
Since October 21st, 2002.
If I can approach and show you a couple of exhibits. Tell us, what did your job duties include?
As a forensic services technician, our main duties were to process a scene, document a scene, either be photograph, sketch, do reports, also collect package evidence, seal evidence, and submit evidence to the state lab for further testing.
If I can show you Exhibit 440 and Exhibit 440. Do you recognize Exhibit 440?
I do.
And what do you recognize Exhibit 440 to be?
Is a brown paper bag sealed with contents. Let's see. Sorry, if you don't mind if I look at it. Contents including 2 socks white, 2 socks black, 1 shirt tank top black, 1 thermal pants gray, 1 pants black, 1 underwear gray, 1 nickel, and 1 key ring with 2 rings from Eric D. Boyd's property.
Now, who sealed that bag?
I did.
And how do you know that?
Because the evidence stated my initials and then the date that it was sealed on the top plate.
And who did you receive that from?
This was received from S. Bowen at Knox County Sheriff's Detention Facility on January 11th, 2007 at 22:35 hours.
Is that the lady that just walked out?
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't clarify for the record, is Hill her married name?
Yes.
I'd like to move Exhibit 440 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
And Exhibit 441. You recognize Exhibit 441?
I do.
And what is Exhibit 441?
Is a brown paper bag sealed with 1 jacket gray, 1 shirt yellow, 1 belt black, 2 shoes, Nike black, and it says L in box.
And whose property?
Received from Eric D. Boyd's property.
And who sealed this bag?
I did. It's got my initials and the date and the time that it was sealed.
And again, who did you receive this property from?
Miss Samantha Bowen at the Knox County Sheriff's Detention Facility.
I'd like to move Exhibit 441 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
Once you received this property, where would you have taken the property?
It would have been transported from the DF to our crime scene lab.
And explain to us the crime scene lab. Is that a secure location?
Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
That's
Cross-examination.
In the crime scene lab, where is that located?
It is located on L3 of the city-county building.
And so that's located down there, and you said it's a secure location?
Yes, sir.
How many people have access to that location?
Depending on how many people are in the crime scene unit at the time,
Okay.
it is keyed and also electronic key card access.
So the people who have access to it are the people who are employed by the crime scene at that time. They have access to that location.
People that are assigned to the crime scene
Assigned to
unit.
it, yes. And is there somebody who's in charge as far as the overall security of that particular location?
I would say it's under lock and key card. So the supervisor of the unit would be in charge of that,
Okay, so it's the supervisor of the unit that ultimately is in charge of that location.
as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Anything?
no, Your Honor.
You can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agent Waggoner.
Your Honor, Leah McClanahan again on behalf of the United States. I have a similar TUI letter from the U.S. Attorney on behalf of Mr. Waggoner.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to take a stand up there?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give in the hearing of this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please have a seat.
Please give us your name, sir.
Bernard Waggoner,
For the record, can you spell your first name
B-E-R-N-A-R-D,
and your last name?
W-A-G-G-O-N-E-R.
Sir, currently where are you employed?
I'm retired from ATF. I do have a contractor job with ATF part-time,
How long were you employed with ATF?
28 years, almost 29 years maybe.
And what was your position with ATF?
I was a special agent, criminal investigator. We investigate violations of federal firearms, explosive arson laws, among others. For most of that time, I was assigned to the Knoxville, Tennessee field office.
Sir, you were self-employed back in January 2007?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And sir, were you one of the many officers that was involved in the investigation of this case?
Yes, ma'am.
If I want to direct your attention to, I guess, January 10th, January 11th, 2007, did you have occasion to participate in taking into custody some people up in Kentucky?
Yes, ma'am.
If you can walk us through how you guys got to Kentucky, about your plan, and then how you executed your plan.
Yes, ma'am. The afternoon of January the 10th, 2007, I came into the office. I was advised about the crimes that had occurred by my supervisor. He told me that we were going to go to Kentucky and look for some of the suspects. So I went home, got some gear, some clothes, and on the evening of January the 10th, I drove my supervisor in my government truck to Kentucky. We spent the night, and then the next morning on the 11th, we drove to the Lebanon, Kentucky Police Department. There we met with several police officers, U.S. Marshals, other ATF agents, Knox County sheriffs, deputies or detectives, and we had a meeting about the investigation in the case. And during this meeting, we identified Stacy Lawson as someone that knew was the girlfriend of one of the people we were looking for. One of the Kentucky State Troopers that was involved in this, a uniformed trooper, he knew where she lived. So I rode with him, another ATF agent followed us, and some of the U.S. Marshals. And it was out of town into the county. He knew where she lived, so we drove out there. I rode with him in his patrol car. As we approached the residence of Stacy Lawson, he knew her by sight. She was leaving the driveway in her green Pontiac Grand Am. He did a traffic stop on her on the road in front of her house. We took her back to the house, told her what we were doing. She said that nobody was in the house, any of these people we were looking for. She let us search the house. They were not there. We talked to her for a few minutes, and she told us where they were at, that she was actually en route to pick them up.
How'd you approach him? Okay, board here, if I can direct your attention to Exhibit 295. Do you recognize Exhibit 295?
Yes, ma'am, that's Stacy Lawson.
If you don't mind. Can you write Stacy on that picture? I'd like to move into evidence Exhibit 295.
No objection.
Let it be received.
All right, so she tells you where they're at,
Yes, ma'am.
and based upon that information, what do you guys then do?
We drove her in the police car back to the Lebanon Police Department. The other ATF agent drove her car back. She agreed to this. We parked her car in the police garage behind the station. She was interviewed by some of the investigators. We formed a plan to go to the residence where the suspects were at, and it's in downtown Lebanon. It's in a residential neighborhood. and we made a plan to go to that house and take them into custody. We gathered up everybody that was available, and we went to the residence. It was on Shuck Avenue. I've forgotten the exact street number. It was the home residence of a Natasha Hayes, and Natasha is spelled different. It's not a common spelling. I believe it's Notasha, Hayes. And she said that the suspects we were looking for were at the residence of Natasha Hayes. We go to the residence, surround the residence. One of the Kentucky state troopers gets on the PA system and announces, "Police, come out with your hands up." Someone called Natasha Hayes' phone and told her the same thing. Shortly after, Natasha Hayes and Vanessa Coleman came out the front door of the house with their hands up. They were taken into custody without any issue and placed into a police car. Then Latavius Cobbins came out with his hands up, was taken into custody and placed into a different police car. And then while I was standing out front behind one of the cars or police cars, I could see somebody peeking out the blinds of the upstairs bedroom window at the front of the house. And we knew someone else was in there. We kept telling them to come out. We got no response. My ATF supervisor told me to get some of the other officers and marshals and go in the house and clear the house and get whoever was in there and bring them out. I did that. We made entry into the house, cleared the bottom of the house. I started telling whoever was upstairs to come down with their hands up and give up. A few minutes later, George Thomas came down the stairs and surrendered. He was taken into custody and placed in a police car, and everyone that was in the house was taken down to the Lebanon Police Department.
Showing you Exhibit 296. Do you recognize Exhibit 296?
Yes, ma'am, that's Natasha Hayes.
You could write Natasha Hayes on there, please. And she was the owner of the house?
Owner or renter, I'm not sure.
I'd like to move Exhibit 296 in as evidence.
No objection. Will be received.
If I can show you Exhibit 433. Ask you to recognize Exhibit
That's
433.
Vanessa Coleman.
If you could write Vanessa on that picture, please. I'd like to move Exhibit 433 in his evidence.
objection. Will be received.
If I can show you Exhibit 292. Do you recognize Exhibit 292?
That's Latavius Cobbins.
If you could write Latavius on that picture, please. I'd like to move Exhibit 292 in his evidence.
No objection. Will be received.
And you recognize Exhibit 293.
This is George Thomas.
If you could write George. I'd like to move Exhibit 293 in his evidence, please.
No objection. Will be received.
All right, so where are these individuals transported to?
The Lebanon, Kentucky Police Department.
And do you go with them?
I followed him, yes, ma'am.
Can you describe the layout of the Lebanon Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, there it is, 417. Showing you Exhibit 417. Do you recognize Exhibit 417?
Yes, ma'am. That's a diagram or blueprint of the building that has the Lebanon, Kentucky Police Department in it.
I'd like to move Exhibit 417 as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
All right, so if you don't mind, here is a laser pointer. Gray button there. Explain to the jury, I guess when you get to the Lebanon Police Department, where do you go and where do the suspects go? If you do.
Can I get up?
Yeah, just a bit. You can't.
This is the lobby, the front of the building. Public entrance is right here. This is the conference room that we use for the initial meeting. And back here is the back doors. The Kentucky State Police had a small office in here. You could walk, you could come in the back door, which would be an interview room.
I apologize, Agent Lager.
I'm sorry.
Could you maybe stand here because the
Okay.
and I can present you this diagram.
If you could turn it,
Yes, sir.
I can do it now.
I can turn it. That's not a problem.
But I don't know if they can see.
If you don't mind to start all over a little bit, please.
Okay. The garage I was talking about, we parked Stacy Lawson's car is back here in this parking lot. Came through the door right here, down the hallway. You could walk more or less around through these hallways right here. I was told to watch George Thomas, Vanessa Coleman, and Natasha Hayes. They had some chairs. I set George Thomas back here in a chair, and I took a chair and sat right there, and I told Natasha Hayes and Vanessa Coleman to stay in the hallway right here. And that's where I sat for some time with those three. I believe the Knox County detectives were interviewing Latavius Cobbins up here in this conference room. And I was waiting with the other suspects for their time to be interviewed.
Why did you want to keep them separate?
So they couldn't talk to each other.
And so while Mr. Cobbins was being interviewed, where was Mr. Thomas?
He was back here at the dead end of this hallway, and I was between him and any access to the door.
And did you stay there the entire time that Mr. Cobbins was being interviewed?
Yes, ma'am. Until they wanted to interview Mr. Thomas, I stayed there and sat with him.
And was Mr. Thomas, in fact, interviewed?
Yes, he was.
Now, when he was taken in the room, was Mr. Cobbins in the room?
No.
They were still separate.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did Mr. Cobbins go after his interview concluded?
I'm not sure. Someone else took him into custody, and we were also using, at some point, the other side of the building. I believe he was placed in one of these rooms with somebody watching him. They interviewed Mr. Thomas, and when they started interviewing George Thomas, I was told to go back to Natasha Hayes' house and conduct a search of the house. She had signed a consent to search so we could search her house.
So then you leave the police department,
Yes, ma'am.
and so you were not there for the duration of Mr. Thomas's interview.
That's correct.
At some point in time, did you return to the police department?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you returned to the police department, do you know where Mr. Thomas was?
Well, I don't remember where he was when I immediately came back, but I again sat him in the same place, and I sat there with him for several more hours.
And this was after his interview.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen? If I can show you exhibits 196, 197, 110, 116, and 198.
Yes, ma'am. The first one, 196, is the front view of Natasha Hayes' house. 97 is a photograph of inside that house, a utility room that also has a bed in it.
For the record, that was 197, right?
197. 110 is a photograph of a closet inside Natasha Hayes' house with a pile of clothes and some other things and a hot water heater. 116 is a photograph of the upstairs bedroom where George Thomas had been when we first got there, and that's myself in the blue coat searching the room. And 198 is a cardboard box with a .22 caliber revolver in it, and it's laying on the bed that is in the utility room that is shown in 197.
For the record, we'd like to move to evidence exhibit 196, 197, 198, and 116. I believe exhibit 110 is already been removed.
Okay. Let it be received.
And we'd like to display those photographs to the jury, please.
Very well.
So if I could direct your attention to the wall and ask you to explain to the jury what we're looking at in exhibit 196.
This is a photograph of Natasha Hayes' residence on Shook Avenue. That's myself in the blue jacket to the left, and this would be after they were in custody and we were either getting ready to search the house or maybe finished searching the house.
Now, directing your attention to the windows at the top.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the windows that Mr. Thomas, windows that you saw movement in?
Yes, ma'am.
Exhibit 197.
This is the photograph of it's a utility room. It has a washer and dryer in it and some other things, but they had placed a bed in it, and there was clothes, and they were using this as a spare bedroom.
Could you explain to us the layout of the house?
It's an older house. You have the front living room. Down the right side of the house, the first bedroom inside the front door was the children's bedroom, or her Natasha Hayes' daughter's bedroom. And then you go down the hallway, and this is in the back to the right, and there's a kitchen in the very back and a back door, and then there's a bathroom in between, and then upstairs, it's actually probably there's a staircase that goes up, and it probably originally was designed as an attic, and they turned it into a bedroom, and they had a bed and some furniture and computer equipment up there.
Now, in exhibit 197, do you see anything that caught your attention?
Yes, ma'am. On the headboard or footboard of the bed, there's a red purse.
And what did you do as relates to that purse?
Well, we searched the house, and so we're going through all this, and so I see the red purse there, and I knew from my investigation at this point that Latavius Cobbins and Vanessa Coleman had been sleeping in that bed, in that bedroom, when they were at Natasha Hayes' house. So I looked in the red purse, and there was evidence in there of what had happened, so we took it into custody.
And your understanding was, did you have an understanding as to where Mr. Thomas had slept?
Yes, ma'am. He had stayed upstairs in the upstairs bedroom.
Exhibit 110?
This is the closet with the hot water heater, and there's a pile of clothes and some bags.
And you can't see it very well, but this bag here, on your monitor, can you tell the color? You see any green in this bag here?
I see green. Yes, ma'am. I see green. It's at the base of the hot water heater.
Now, this this photograph here, where is this closet at in relationship to that room that we were just looking at?
It's in the room. I mean, to access this closet, you have to go into the utility room, bedroom.
And your understanding was who stayed in that room?
Vanessa Coleman and Latavius Cobbins.
I think this is just a closer up view of exhibit 110.
Yes, ma'am. It's the green bag, and there's some brown or maroon striping on it.
Exhibit 116?
This is the upstairs loft that they had turned into a bedroom. Natasha Hayes had apparently tried to turn it into some kind of music studio. They have some musical equipment, keyboards, computers. There's also a bed, maybe some other furniture.
And who stayed in this room?
George Thomas.
Exhibit 198?
This is a cardboard box that was under the bed in the utility room downstairs, and in it is a white hair bow and a silver .22 caliber revolver.
And exhibit 199?
Again, it's a closer view of the hair bow and the revolver.
And again, this was in whose room?
This was in the room that Vanessa Coleman and Latavius Cobbins was staying in.
I'd like to move exhibit 199 in this evidence as well.
No objection, Your Honor. Let it be received.
And some of the items that we talked about, you said you,
I'm sorry.
no, you don't. Some of the items you collected that you told us about?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you exhibit 330, and there's some gloves. Showing you exhibit 337, do you recognize exhibit 337?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you recognize exhibit 337 to be?
Inside this box is the red purse that was on the headboard of the house in Lebanon, Kentucky.
I'd like to move exhibit 337 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
And ask for permission to publish it to the jury.
Thank you.
I think the box, I've already opened up the box.
Do you want me to take it out?
Oh, please. And is that the purse that you confiscated?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Now, the contents that were in the purse, did we package those in a different box?
The Knox County Sheriff's Office did. When we were finished with the search, the evidence that I recovered from the house on Chuck Avenue, I turned over to the Knox County Sheriff's Office, and they transported it back to Knoxville and placed it into custody.
442. If you were to see those contents again, could you identify those?
Yes,
contents?
ma'am.
Okay. If you don't mind, if you want to put that back in the box. And can I use your scissors? This would be 442. Showing you exhibit 442, if you want to open that and see if you recognize the contents inside of that box.
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you able to recognize exhibit 442? I see you looking at something there.
Well, looking at the red leather billfold, and in it is a photograph of Latavius Cobbins, who I was told was Vanessa Coleman's boyfriend at the time. That's one of the big things I see. And the other stuff, this was also, there was a perfume bottle that I remember, and some containers, this little bag.
I'd like to move exhibit 442 in as evidence. All of these items as collective 442.
No objection. Let it be received.
Showing you exhibit 334. Ask to be recognized exhibit 344. 334.
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you, I guess, recognize that box to be?
Oh, this is a box we put guns in that we take as evidence. You can strap it down and keep the gun secure while it's in evidence, your evidence room.
And you recognize what's in the box?
Yes, ma'am. This is the Clark 22 caliber revolver that was in the photograph in the box in the utility room.
I'd like to move exhibit 334 in as evidence. Were there any bullets or anything in the
Let it be received.
Clark revolver?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
And is that what's in the envelope there?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be collected 334.
Any objection? No, no. Let it be received.
All right, so you have collected these items of evidence. Once you collect these items of evidence, what do you do?
In Lebanon, Kentucky,
Yes, sir.
I go back to the Lebanon Police Department, and then I help for the rest of the evening with watching George Thomas. Primarily, at some point, Vanessa Coleman was released after she was interviewed to her parents. I walked Vanessa Coleman up to the lobby area, the glass-in lobby area, when her parents showed up to take her home. And then I went back to watch George Thomas and sat with him the rest of the evening.
What happens after that?
At some point in the evening, a warrant was faxed up to the Lebanon Police Department, a federal arrest warrant for Thomas and Latavius Cobbins. My supervisor at ATF received that. He advised both of them they were under arrest on federal charges. They were then transported to the Marion County Sheriff's Office jail. And the next morning, a Knoxville City Police cruiser with 2 officers transported Latavius Cobbins and George Thomas to U.S. District Court in Louisville, Kentucky. Myself and my ATF supervisor followed up there for the initial appearance, and they were turned over to the custody of the U.S. Marshals.
What did you then do?
We were driving back to Knoxville.
Now, I guess on your way back to Knoxville, did you get a call from return to Kentucky?
Yes, ma'am. the box with the .22 caliber revolver, when we searched the house initially, the revolver was not in the box. We searched the room, and that box with a hair bow, the gun was not there. That evening, on our way back to Knoxville, the Kentucky State Police called ATF, and we called them back, and they said that Natasha Hayes had called and said while cleaning the house out, she had found this gun. And so myself and my supervisor returned to Lebanon, Kentucky, went over to the house and met with the state trooper, and took the .22 caliber revolver I showed you into ATF custody.
Now, once you got that revolver, did you head back to Knoxville?
Yes, ma'am, and we drove to the Knoxville Police Department immediately, and we turned that revolver over to the Knoxville Police Department.
And who had you turned the purse and contents over to?
The Knox County Sheriff's Office, and that would have been the day before.
Now, did you, you're back in Knoxville, did you have occasion to execute a search warrant at Chipman Street?
Yes, ma'am.
And direct your attention to Exhibit 304, you recognize Exhibit 304?
Yes, ma'am, that's a photograph.
364.
That's a photograph of the front of the house on Chipman Street.
In 364, that's the
Yes,
same photo?
ma'am, that's the same photo.
I'd like to move Exhibit 364 to use that.
No objection. You see.
Okay, so tell us about executing the, what day did you execute this search warrant on the house?
This would have been on the 15th of January. We did 3 search warrants total in 2 days here. The first search warrant was executed by myself, some other ATF agents, and Knoxville City police officer around 8:20, 8:30 that morning.
And tell us about the execution of the search.
Well, the house was empty. It had been secured or locked up, so there's no one there. We made entry, and we called, or I caused to be called, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab, and they sent out a mobile crime unit, and they responded, and we searched the house, and the TBI Crime Lab personnel went through the evidence in the house that we were finding.
And what, if anything, of note do you recall confiscating from the house?
Well, in the back bedroom was a pair of pink high-heel shoes. I also found a red skirt, size 1.5, something like that, a very slim skirt. There was a bottle of bleach, partially or almost empty, but there was still some bleach in it. We took some sections of the wall out that had brown stains on them that we believe may be blood stains. There's a list of maybe 24 or 30 items that we took on this first search warrant.
And this is going to be after the Knoxville Police Department had executed their search.
Yes, ma'am. My understanding of it is that days earlier, the Knoxville Police Department had gone to the house and done a search warrant.
I'm approaching to show you Exhibit 341. And for the record, we have both sides that agree that it's okay to cut it to make it a little bit easier. You recognize Exhibit 341?
Yes, ma'am. This bag contains the pink high-heel shoes that I saw and found in the back bedroom. If
I was going to say, we'd like to move Exhibit 341 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
And we would ask, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to tell the jury my signature are on these property labels.
We'd like to ask him to open that bag and display those shoes to the jury, please. recover those shoes from?
They were at the Chipman Street residence in a closet in the back bedroom.
Okay. You want to hold those? Thank you. We'd like, you're going to take a look at Exhibit 372. I ask you to recognize Exhibit 372.
Yes, ma'am. This bag contains the red skirt that we found in the living room at the Chipman Street residence.
I'd like to move Exhibit 372 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
And we would ask you to remove that and display that to the jury. Where was the red skirt found?
It was in the front living room of the Chipman Street address. The front door right there, that's a sunroom. It's glass enclosed, as if they did enclose the front porch, and then right behind that is the living room, and that's where we found the red skirt.
I'll show you Exhibit 355 and ask you to recognize Exhibit 355.
Yes, ma'am. This is the bleach bottle that I found in the kitchen of the Chipman Street address.
Exhibit 355 in as evidence.
No objection. Let them be received.
So what we're going to do is show you Exhibit 44. You recognize Exhibit 44? We have to turn the lights off. I'm sorry.
Well, it's a photograph of inside the Chipman Street residence, but that's the red skirt in the back.
I think I've got a close-up picture too. Is this a close-up?
Yes, ma'am. It's on the table.
I'd like to move Exhibit 44 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
Exhibit 99.
This is a photograph of the closet in the back bedroom, and in the back of the photograph, toward the top, are the pink high heel shoes we found.
Is that a close-up?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to move Exhibit 99 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
Exhibit 124.
Yes, ma'am.
In Exhibit 124, you see where the bleach bottle is. I guess you don't see it.
It's in the cabinet, but this is the kitchen area, the sink of the Chipman Street address here in Knoxville.
I move Exhibit 124 in as evidence.
No objection. Let it be received.
And then, sir, showing you this exhibit here, 425. Can you step down and just tell the jury just a general layout of the house? And show them where those items that you recovered were found.
This is the front enclosed porch. This is the living room. There's a fireplace here. Back here is the table in the living room where I found the red skirt. This is the kitchen area. And here's the sink and the cabinet where I found the bleach bottle. And then here's the back bedroom. And there's a closet back in here where I found the pink high heel shoes.
Cross-examination.
Agent Waggoner, how are you doing, sir?
Doing good, sir.
I know you said that there were a total of 3 search warrants that were executed on the 15th and the 16th at the Chipman Street residence.
sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why were there 3?
We obtained a search warrant initially, while we were conducting that search warrant, we saw things that didn't fit the protocols of the first search warrant. We were in contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they would advise to get another search warrant. And then we did that. And then again, we decided we needed to go back the next day and look for some stuff, some evidence. And so we obtained a third one.
Okay. And I guess specifically, these federal search warrants are somewhat limited in the scope of what you're looking for, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, they oftentimes have a separate sheet which says this is specifically what we're looking for at this location, correct?
Yes.
And so if you run into stuff that is outside the scope of what you're searching for, the cautious thing to do is to go get a second search warrant.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what were you looking for during the first search warrant?
Evidence of the crimes that have been committed. I believe it says ammunition, firearms, ownership, occupancy. If I could see the search warrant, if you have it, I can read it to you.
Let me ask you this, and I understand, what was it that caused you to get a second search warrant? What did you run into that made you feel that you needed to look for it?
I believe the second search warrant, while we were doing the first search warrant, I saw holes in the wall that looked like they were .22 caliber bullet holes. And we went back to look for expended bullets and ammunition casing. We tore out some of the walls in the house. There was a bullet hole, and these holes were the diameter of a .22 caliber bullet. And there was a bullet hole in the ceiling of the living room, and then there were 2 bullet holes in the wall next to the fireplace in the living room.
Did you find any ammunition or casings at that point in time?
No, sir, I did not.
Eventually some bullets were found in a sink trap, were they not?
Yes, sir. I believe those were found on the first warrant in the bathroom sink trap. I took it off, and there were 2 .22 caliber bullets in the sink trap.
And these were the actual bullets themselves?
Actual bullets, yes.
Okay. And this third search warrant, what was the reason that you got a third search warrant?
I'd actually have to look at the warrant. We were looking for more of the same, and we ended up only taking a cell phone charger that was had been thrown in the toilet.
Okay, so that's what you was seized with that warrant, was a cell phone charger?
The last one, yes.
Okay. Let me ask you again, going back to the operation in Kentucky, there were 4 individuals in the house, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Natasha Hayes, George Thomas, Latavius Cobbins, and Vanessa Coleman.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Mr. Thomas was in the upstairs bedroom.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Cobbins and Ms. Coleman were located in the bedroom downstairs where the gun was found. That room, we saw pictures of.
That's where I knew they were staying.
They were staying. Okay.
Yes. But they came out.
Yes. And then they were taken and interviewed at the police station there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think that you said that you sat there and posted, kept an eye on them, making sure that they weren't communicating with each other while they were being interviewed?
Yes.
And I believe Mr. Cobbins was interviewed. Was he interviewed first?
Yes.
And then it would have been Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir.
And that's whenever you went to the house there in Kentucky and did the search there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, I guess, was it Miss Hayes or Miss Coleman that was interviewed next?
I don't know about that. Once they took George Thomas to be interviewed, they told me to go to the house. So who interviewed Vanessa Coleman and Natasha Hayes and in what order, I don't know.
So you weren't present whenever Miss Coleman was interviewed?
Not in Kentucky.
Not in Kentucky?
Yes.
You were present when she was interviewed in Tennessee?
I did the interview in Tennessee.
Okay, so you actually interviewed her back here in Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
And again, I'm not going to ask you any, as far as hearsay or anything, but in her statement, she did not incriminate Mr. Boyd, did she?
She brought him up.
She brought him up, but didn't incriminate him as engaging in the crime?
No, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
How many different statements did Vanessa Coleman give?
I don't know, ma'am. It was several. I interviewed her once. She told me some things. I had to stop and go get the U.S. Attorney and my supervisor. She was honoring a subpoena to the federal grand jury. I interviewed her again about a week later when she went back to Kentucky. And then I'm not sure, she was interviewed one day after the federal grand jury by the Knox County DA's office, and I sat in on that interview, but didn't actually do it. So maybe 5 or 6 times that I'm aware of.
And were her statements consistent?
The statements she gave to me were consistent once she decided to tell me the truth.
Yes.
And again, in all those 5 statements, she was not incriminating Mr. Bivens.
Well, sir, I don't know about the other ones that
The ones that you participated
the ones I participated in. She mentioned them but did not incriminate him.
Thank you.
That's all.
You can step down. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. And our next witness is a little long.
Well, we've been sitting for a while, and next week is going to be lengthy. Let's go ahead and take a brief. That's it this All right, we'll take a 15-minute recess.
Thank you.